decision like that. No more going to church on a Sunday, and shopping days on a Sabbath is now not. Everything happens on the Sabbath days, on the Sabbath, as you know. There are weddings for the young ones who have sport days. No more sport days on a Saturday, because most of the sport days and events are on a Sabbath. So there's a cost to that call. And some people who come up the pulpit and make that decision, they turn away again because they did not count the cost of that call. So this third person says, I just want to go and tell my people at home. He couldn't be just he couldn't be away. So he had to say, I had to go. But we have we spoke about the self-sacrifice. You've got to make a sacrifice when you follow Christ. Then also there's the cost of picking up the cross and carrying the cross. I just wondered, what does it mean to you and me when Christ says we are called to pick up our crosses? There's a cross here, but I don't see any of you with a cross on your shoulder. So what does it mean to you to pick up the cross and carry your cross? Does anybody want to tell me what it means to pick up your cross and carry your cross? What does it really mean to us in practice? Anybody, can I see your hand? I always read in the Bible, when Christ went to the synagogue, there was dialogue there. Isn't it, Pastor? There was dialogue. People challenged each other. People asked questions. People said things. So now I thought today I'll do something like that. Otherwise, it's 12 o'clock and it's time to wrap up. Sister Angie, what does it mean to you to carry your cross, to pick up your cross? Do you want to come and pick up that cross and carry it to Rehoboth? So what does it mean for you to carry your cross? Can you give us examples? What does it mean when you pick up your cross to do sacrifices? What else? Anybody? So you have been following Christ and read that verse and pick up your cross? Natasha, what does that mean to you? Please come up and tell them what it meant to you. Dr. Angelo, in the meantime, then Natasha. We just need to be, women are very practical people. So I want to just confirm a few lessons here today. Reasons you've been carrying your crosses and you don't know what you were doing.
For me, to carry my cross means that I must remember always that whatever I do, whatever I think, Jesus is watching me. And I must not think what the world thinks of me, but I must think what Jesus thinks of me. And I have to sacrifice my time, my efforts, my talents, everything that I have, that God has blessed me with.
Sacrificing. To consider your fellow human being, for instance, I heard the children talk here about kindness. You remember the fruit of the Spirit? How am I, if I was now very rude, I'm not very friendly, I have now to change. Pick up Christ, it's the cross that Christ carried, because he was just the opposite. We have to read about him, pray, study his word, so that we can pick up the cross. Okay, who's got the verse Luke 9:22 and 23? I mean Luke 9:23, 25.
Okay. Luke 9 verse 23, and he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. For what is a man advantaged if he gain the whole world and lose himself or be cast away?
Thank you. Then I want somebody to read Matthew 4, verse 18 to 22.
Matthew 4, verse 18 to 22. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him.
Thank you. Now, in those cases, we saw that the disciples immediately, they were fishermen, and they added to their words, they added action. When Christ called them, because I said that the call to follow me comes from God, is a sacred call. The disciples recognized that immediately. Remember, their fishing was their livelihood, and perhaps their fishing fed their families, and perhaps their fishing, they also hired men, and they were responsible to pay those people. A lot of things you can imagine, but they immediately, the word says immediately, leave everything. I like the word immediately. It's prompt action. You know, there was a verse further in the Bible where Peter was walking on the water, and he was sinking, and Christ, he asked Christ to please save me. And the word in that verse, there's a word that says, and Jesus immediately stretched his hand out to Peter. If he didn't do that immediately, Peter would have sunk. So I love that verse, and I sometimes quote it I say it back to God. I said, you immediately stretched your hand out to Peter. So please immediately stretch your hand out to me. The fishermen there immediately left their boats and they followed Christ. And we know because of that, the whole world was evangelized, isn't it? So for us as women of God, for us it is sometimes required to act immediately. When the call comes to us, we should act immediately. We might or might not get an opportunity to be called again. There's also consequences. There's consequences to following Christ. And I'm summarizing. The consequences to following Christ is separation from your loved ones. Might call for separation from your loved ones. You know, the person who said, I first need to go and tell my people. Imagine when he went home and they said to him, so what? Where are you going? Well, I'm going to follow this man who is speaking the truth. They would say, did you think it through properly? Are you sure you want to go? They would bring such a lot of thoughts into this man and this mind. Are you not acting too quick? Do you think you want to immediately do it? Think of what you're going to lose. And doubt will start setting into that person's mind. And sometimes it will, as I said, it will cost a lot to us. If we go home, we're going to tell our husbands, our wives, and the husband or wife might not agree. The mother or father might not agree. So there will be separation. It means, what it also means, you the consequences is that you will love your family. You love your family, but you cannot love your family more than the Creator God. The consequence of discipleship, loving our families, but not allowing them to interfere with our love for God and the desire to obey His commands. It is sometimes so also that the husband or wives belong to two different denominations. But for us, if we are in that situation, is to follow the word of God. So those might be some of our consequences. Some of the consequences is, when the disciples left their families, they went out. We heard God said, don't take anything with you. They didn't say, my children, my wife, please come along with me. I've now decided this. I'm going to, please pack up and come. There's times that it's going to cost of us to follow Christ. The consequences might be that we have to separate from our families. Just also a thought. What did it cost? Sorry, Brother Sam, I'm out of. In the meantime, what did it cost Christ on the cross, when he carried his cross, when he died for us? It cost separation from his Father. Remember how he wept and he called out to his Father, take this cup away from me. He felt that Christ had turned dark around him. He exchanged the praise and adoration of the angels in heaven for a life of ridicule. Remember how he was slapped in the face? How he was spit in his face? How the cross was pressed down, the cross of thorn was pressed down on his head. He had ridicule, mockery, how he was beaten when he had to carry the cross up the hill. He was ridiculed, mocked, and scorned for you and me. And we don't want to give up. When I went through this, seeing that he gave up the glory and splendor of heaven, which he exchanged for suffering and humility, I can sometimes see when I look at us that we want religion of ease. We want cheap grace. We want to go, if we leave here today, we will go home and that's the end of the Sabbath. Then we will return here next Sabbath again. Cheap grace, we are Adventists, we attend on the Sabbath day, and then that is it. When we're out there, we forgot. And we forget that we're supposed to carry our crosses. That we will have to be Christians, disciples of Christ. We have to reconsider and think what this call to follow me means. Following me means to follow your leader, the example of your leader. We will have to think what the cost of being here, because being here means already that we followed the call. We must contemplate and think what that cost us. Are we not going to pay anything for it? No buying out of time. When Christ comes on the clouds of heaven, will we be able to say that we were disciples? Because a disciple learns from the master. A disciple follows the master. The disciple imitates the master. If you think back of the worldly disciples, I just quickly think of Charles Mason. I think Java was so clever there, always have much to say. You will probably remember the issue of Charles Mason, who had disciples. Charles Mason was one of the most weirdest murderers of his time. And he had a group of hippies. He had a commune where he lived in America. He had a group of hippies who followed him in the ages of 18, 19. There's discussion now because after they committed the murders, they got life sentences. One of the girls, I remember, was 17 years old, and she's been in prison for longer than I can remember. And there's now request for her to being released from prison. She was 17 when she went in. I think she's something like 63 or something now. They followed him so diligently. Then when he said, listen, go and kill, they killed actor family. They went to kill this girl who was pregnant, and they killed a few other people just because they followed they were his disciples. And even when he was so twisted, they still followed him. Why can you and I not follow the master who is love? So the challenge to us, when we consider the cost of following Christ, consider the cost, consider the call, consider the consequences. Now, I just want to ask, because I started off with the reason for the week of prayer. For all women, I just want you to please stand up. Because the women are the ones who rock the cradle, we are saying, isn't it? And it is Women's Week of Prayer. Today is International Women's Day of Prayer. Can all the women please stand up? I'm going to ask Pastor and the elder of the church to come to the front, please. I want also, the next thing, I also want the women to move to the front. All women, children, girl childs, children, please come to the front. The Adams, Adam, are you in the hall? Adam, can you make a circle around Eves, please? Can you make a circle around your Eves? All men, please make a circle around your women. All ladies in the center. Pastor and elders in front. And all males to make a circle around the ladies, please. Are all our males? Remember, we were made from your ribs. The males, please make a circle, take hands and make a circle around the ladies. And I'm going to ask our pastor, please, to consecrate the women in your church to God. And then as the male makes the circle around the ladies, please take hands. I'm going to ask two males in that circle, as the Spirit speaks to you. Please consecrate us to God. Consecrate us to God. Remember, if Adam didn't leave Eve alone, Eve might not have been tempted by the serpent. So we are going to ask three males in the circle to pray for us, and Pastor will say the final prayer. Can I see the hands of those three males, please? Can I see the hands of those males? So that we don't waste time, and that you look at each other and you follow each other. I can see the elders looking eager to pray. Let me see, elders going to pray. Who's our second male doctor is going to pray? Thank you. Chabu, don't let me call on you again. Who's going to pray? Thank you very much. And Pastor will say the final prayer. Now, ladies, can you kneel before the Lord, please?